Morning, guys. So I don't know if you guys saw the video flying around in the Super Cub and kind of comparing that to what it's like flying the J3. So I'm just going to do some takeoff and landings and kind of show you the performance of a J3. And I think you might be surprised because it's actually not really as awful as some people would think. 65 horsepower. I do have a duster prop, so it's essentially a climb prop. So my cruise is like 65 miles an hour, but it does climb a little better. You just kind of do some short field takeoff and landings just to kind of see what the performance is of a J3. If you're wondering what's going on with my hand, I was pulling a nail. I was redoing a room in my house. And the final thing was putting up trim on one door, and I tried to pull the nail out, and I couldn't find my normal pliers, so I used these electrical pliers that have this really sharp hook on the end. I was holding the trim with my left hand, trying to pull the nail out, and it slipped, and quick trip to the emergency room, and 10 stitches later, here I am. But good news is that I'm still able to fly.
J3 traffic, go departing runway 19, flying to be departing to the northeast.
Bit of a headwind. Right now, density altitude is it's like 1,000 feet. It's 70 degrees out. Altimeter's a little higher than standard. A little bit of a wind, about 4 or 4 knots last I checked. All right, here we go. Gets up pretty quick. Climb out at like, I don't know, 50-ish, somewhere around there.
Touchdown, Jenny traffic, Skyhawk 0, Golf Papa, about 10 miles to the east, landing, touchdown.
Now, on a hot day with another person in the front, there's really nothing at all you can do. It's going to climb like a pig, and it's going to be slow. But this airplane, 65 horsepower by yourself, it's good. What I kind of like about the Cub is you can't power your way out of trouble. You kind of have to think ahead, plan ahead. So it requires a little bit more planning than, say, an airplane with, you know, something like a Super Cub, 150 or 60 horsepower, 180 horsepower, whatever it is. All right, so the first thing we'll do is we'll go over to Allen's, and I'm going to come over that tree line in a slip, try to get it down. I'll do a wheel landing first, and then a 3-point landing. The wheel landing, I'll be able to put it down a little earlier, but I'll have a little bit more energy, a little bit more speed. 3-point full stall landing, the airplane is going to stop flying when it's done flying. So I'll come in over the tree line. It's like a 50-foot obstacle, and then I'll come around the other way. The wind's light enough. There might be a little bit of a tailwind, but it's not much, and I'll see how quickly I can get it down and stop.
Allen's traffic, Yellow Cub entering the left downwind for 3-1 at Allen's.
I'm going to close this for the slip, because if I don't, my hat and my headset's coming off. Alright. Yeah, there'll definitely be a good bit of a tailwind coming the other way, so maybe I'll go to Red Wing, something like that. Alright, beam where I want to touch down. And the brakes on the J3 are not that good, which is kind of how I like it. It's less of a chance of me nosing it over, or actually 0 chance of me nosing it over in a Cub. But obviously the drawback to that is that it's not going to stop as quick as it should. But on grass, you're just going to lock up the brakes and slide anyway. So if I'm plus or minus 20 feet, it's not that big of a deal.
Allen's traffic, Yellow Cub is turning final, runway 31 Allen's.
All right. Remember, good landings start with good approaches, so a little fast. Like I said, wheel landing first. We'll see how quickly I can get it stopped. trees. Alright, got it made.
This is really cool here. Watch the feet per minute vertical speed, the VSI, and watch it almost double when I put the airplane into a slip. It's just pretty cool to see. Also, I don't know why I shot the approach like this. To me, it makes more sense to come in higher and start slipping sooner rather than come in low and flat and then slip. I don't really know why I did that.
Alright. Get on the brakes a bit here. Alright, so I didn't stay on the brakes, but I did them a little harder than I normally would. So, I don't know. I got down pretty quick. I could have touched down a little sooner, but I'm not trying to work these little bungees any harder than they already are with my landings. Alright, so hopefully the GPS recorded that, and we'll see. Now I'll come in and I'll do the same thing, only instead of wheel landing, I'm going to 3-point it. And we'll see how much longer that takes. And we'll also compare the pavement with a little bit of a headwind to doing a takeoff on grass. Alright, here we go. Taking off out of W. I tried to pull it off the ground a little bit early, which doesn't help if you're not generating enough lift to get off the ground, but But what I really love about the J3 is when you're sitting in the back, you kind of have this wide-angle view of everything, where the Super Cub or any other airplane, when you sit up front, you have like this, it's kind of a telephoto view, so it's a little bit more narrower field of view. When you sit back here in the Cub, it's just like an ultra-wide-angle lens. It's really, really hard to beat.
Allen's Chevy Cub is turning final, base to final 3-1 Allen's.
Alright, so same thing, just bring it in a slip, and then I'll 3-point it, and we'll see how much longer that takes. Kind of sloppy, but get on the brakes, forgot about that. So it took me a little longer, but that was also kind of some sloppy flying. But again, plus or minus 20 feet, not a big deal. 3-point, yeah, by the time you touch down, the ground roll might be shorter, but I think when you come in for a landing, it's better to just force it on a wheel landing and then get on the brakes.
Alright guys, this is pretty rudimentary. It's not an exact science, but I touched down a little bit before where there's that opening there. It's about 683 feet, so I probably touched down, I don't know, we'll call it around 500 feet or so coming over that obstacle, and then it took me a little bit longer to get the airplane slowed down because I had a little bit more energy.
You know, I personally think the J3, 65 horsepower, I think it performs a lot better than a lot of people think or assume that it would. Now again, if you have 2 people in the summer, it's going to take all that 65 horsepower to just get off the ground, and there's not going to be much of a climb rate at all. But for what I do, if anyone's really flying around and you're by yourself and you're 200 pounds plus or minus a few, I mean, you can get in and out of most places at sea level, obviously, right? You're not going to take this anywhere other than sea level and get any type of climb out of it. But I do think this airplane with a C85 or like a C90 stroker, whatever it is, to me, I think that's perfect because you have the J3, but you almost have Super Cub performance. You just don't have the flaps. And you obviously don't have the utility. You still can't carry a lot of gas. You can't really carry a lot of things. But the climb rate is probably awesome. All right, so what I'll do is I'll come out, I'll swing around and then a left downwind for 1-3 at Allen's. There might be a tiny bit of a quarter-inch tailwind, just a little bit, but it shouldn't make that much of a difference. So the first thing I'll do is I'll come in and I'll do a wheel landing, and then we'll do a 3-point the other way. Good news is the hand is okay with the throttle here.
Cross-gauge traffic, Skyhawk 50 Golf, turning cross.
Brakes. Alright, so not bad. Lock the brakes up a little bit there, and I have a little bit of a tailwind. I could have got down a touch sooner, but not bad. Got down and stopped before the road on a wheel landing, so I'll see if I can do better in a 3-point. Now obviously the trick here is to have it basically close to coming down out of the sky in a 3-point attitude as soon as the runway starts, but that obviously gets a little trickier because if you're early you're going to land short, and that's obviously not what you want to do.
Takeoff Cub is departing runway 13 Allen's, left close traffic.
Alright, here we go. The reason why I'm pushing forward on the stick like that when I get going is to get the tail wheel out of the grass, because that just creates a lot of drag. Alright, so there's a little bump there that kind of helps me get up and away, so that's kind of nice. J3 is obviously not a STOL aircraft, but I'm just doing it just to kind of point out that the performance is probably a little better than I think most would assume.
Allen's traffic, Yellow Cub is left downwind for 1-3 Allen's.
Won't be slipping, so open this. Nice thing about a Cub too is that there's just so much drag. With the windows open, the door, the struts, it's just a very, very high drag airplane. So I actually carried a little extra speed there, kept it in the slip just to bleed off some airspeed, and I think I got it stopped just a little bit shorter.
All right, and here's the Google Map measurement here. I got stopped right where it kind of narrows in there, and that was about, call that 500 feet. Could definitely get it down and stopped sub 500 feet, no problem.
So obviously if I would have pulled the power out a little earlier, coming a little farther out, and dropped it in, it would have definitely stopped shorter. So, which makes sense, right? Because the airplane is done flying, so there's really no energy to bleed off. You're touching down at, 38 miles an hour as opposed to 50, something like that, with a wheel landing. So pretty good, pretty impressive for the 80-something-year-old 65 horsepower airplane. And again, if I put a metal prop on this, obviously the climb performance would be significantly better, but you know, I love the look of the wooden prop, and it's a little less vibration on the airframe and the motor, so I'm going with a little less performance and the aesthetics of and the vintage feel of a wood prop. All right, I'll head back to the W now, and I'm not going to lock up the brakes on the pavement because these tires are expensive, so. Alright, I'd stay on the brakes right now to get it stopped, but I'm saving some money.